into your first corporate job. You are young, excited, you worked hard to get there, and suddenly you are standing in front of one of the most powerful business leaders in Nigeria. You say, "Good morning, Tony." And he stops you and says, "No, you won't call me Tony. You will call me Mr. Elumelu or TOE." This was what happened during a recent UBA Graduate Management Accelerated Program event involving Mr. Tony Elumelu, the Group Chairman of the United Bank for Africa, UBA, which operates across 20 African countries and globally, and a young graduate UBA trainee. My name is MJ, and I welcome you specially to another episode of the OY Show. Now, this moment has gone viral. Nigerians are debating something much bigger than one greeting. Was the young woman disrespectful? Was Mr. Tony Elumelu unnecessarily harsh? Or are we looking at something deeper? A clash between two ideas of respect, or one shaped by traditional Nigerian culture, and another shaped by modern, more informal workplace cultures around the world. As someone who have lived in Nigeria for many years and now lives in Canada for more than 4 years, I want to take a look at this from both sides because honestly, Canada has changed some of the way I think about workplace relationships, but it didn't at any point in time erase the Nigerian values that I grew up with. And I think that's where the conversation gets really interesting. Let's start with something that I think is very important. Mr. Tony Elumelu is allowed to have a preference for how people address him. That's his personal boundary, and we shouldn't automatically interpret someone's preference for Mr. Elumelu or TEO as arrogance. The setting matters. This wasn't a group of friends sitting around having coffee and gisting. This was a formal corporate event involving a graduate trainee and a chairman of UBA. And having worked in Nigeria before I relocated, I know that in traditional Nigerian professional culture, hierarchy matters, position matters, age matters, context matters. So when you're addressing someone significantly older than you, particularly someone who is the chairman of the organization that you work with, I think that you should, tread carefully and, of course, professionally. When you are addressing someone significantly older than you, particularly someone who is the chairman of your organization, using a title such as Sir, Mr. Elumelu, Chairman, Doctor, or another appropriate title, depending on the organization, can be a normal expression of respect. So I understand why some Nigerians, watched that video or that clip and said, "What's the problem? Something must be wrong with that lady. She should have known better." Personally, I cringed when I saw the clip. Take a listen.
Good morning, Tony.
Okay, no, you won't call me Tony. I'm not those people. You call me Miss Elumelu or TOE. You won't call me Tony or Chairman. That is, I don't suck out
We
of that kind
already
of
know that there
Weibo
is
life, okay?
value in respect. There is value in understanding hierarchy. There is value in knowing that professionalism isn't always about treating everybody exactly the same. Sometimes professionalism means understanding the environment you are walking into or you currently in. Now let's turn the camera around because we also need to give that young woman some grace. She didn't insult him. She didn't curse him. She didn't tell him that she was his equal, obviously. She simply used his first name. And that distinction matters because in many modern workplaces around the world, particularly workplaces influenced by North American corporate culture, calling your manager or senior executive by their first name can be completely normal. Sometimes it is actually encouraged. Yeah, so at least from what I know here in Canada, I call my boss and my boss's boss by their first names, and it's completely normal. Though I have never tried that with a VP or an AVP. But of course, some CEO, maybe named David Serra, they can just say, "Just call me David." And it doesn't necessarily mean I don't respect you. It just simply means we're colleagues and we are communicating on a first name basis. And this is one of the cultural adjustments that immigrants had to learn. Yeah, we had to learn that when we moved to Canada. Even though the Nigerian part of your brain still says, can I call him David? Can I call him John? When isn't he my manager? But eventually we realized that a first name culture isn't necessarily removing respect. It is adjusting to the cultural norm of the organization that you find yourself. Having lived in both environments and worked in the bank in both countries, I've learned something. I've learned that respect and familiarity are not always opposites. In Nigeria, respect can be communicated through language, sir, ma, Mr., madam, chairman. Sometimes even the way you greet someone, the way you stand, or the way you speak communicates respect. Yes, but in Canada, respect can often be communicated differently. Neither side or system has a monopoly on respect. They are simply different cultural they are simply different cultural languages, and you have to learn to read the room. If you take every Canadian workplace now and assume it automatically applies in Nigeria, you may find yourself in trouble. Notice that many Nigerians are using the phrase home training. Well, what does home training mean? At its best, home training means you were taught to conduct yourself around other people. You were taught to greet and how to greet. Yeah, you were taught to respect others. You were taught that not every environment is the same. You were taught to observe before you speak. And frankly, I think some of those lessons are not only valuable in Nigeria, they are valuable everywhere, including Canada. That being said, being confident doesn't mean being rude, and being young doesn't mean you know everything. But there is a danger because if we reduce, respect entirely to age and hierarchy, we can create workplaces that younger people become afraid to ask questions, challenge ideas, or speak honestly, and that's not healthy either. A good workplace needs both respect and psychological safety. Now, here's where I would offer a little criticism. I completely understand correcting someone when they address you in a way you don't like, but how you correct a young person matters, especially when you're a very senior executive and the person you're correcting is a young trainee. There is an enormous power difference. Could Mr. Elumelu have simply said, please call me Mr. Elumelu or TOE and moved on? Absolutely. Would that have communicated the same preference? Probably. But I also don't think we should turn a few seconds of awkwardness. You can see it's just a little clip, to a declaration that Mr. Tony Elumelu doesn't respect young people or compare it to the interview you had with a prominent British interviewer. We don't know that. We saw just some few seconds of clip and we should analyze the interaction, not invest a personality from it. That's an important distinction. But here is my advice. If you're a young Nigerian entering the workplace, learn the culture before you try to change the culture. When you enter a new organization, observe. How do people address their senior management? Do employees use first names? Are titles expected? Is the environment formal or, relaxed? If you're unsure, please ask. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, how do you prefer I address you? That question can save you a lot of embarrassment. And if you're moving between countries like me, the same principle applies. Don't assume that because something is normal in Canada, it should be normal in Nigeria, or something normal in Nigeria should be normal in Canada. Cultural intelligence is knowing the difference and what you place value in. In conclusion, Mr. Tony Elumelu has every right to say how he prefers to be addressed. And the young trainee may have been operating from a modern workplace understanding where first names don't automatically equal disrespect. And I hope that she's given some grace and also she learns to ask questions next time in a Nigerian corporate setting. To my non Nigerian viewers, this is not about Nigeria is old fashioned or laid back, and it isn't young people do not have respect. It is that we don't have to throw away our culture and we can embrace confidence without arrogance. We can respect elders like Nigerians do say without silencing the younger people. And we can work in a first name culture without forgetting our manners. That's the balance. And honestly, that's what I think that this viral moment should teach every one of us. Don't just learn how to do the job. Learn learn how to read the room, because sometimes I have learned that your qualifications may get you into the room, but your cultural intelligence determines how well you navigate or even remain in that room. Until I come your way next time, do not forget to like and share and hit that subscribe button. Yes, hit that subscribe button on my channel. Please take out time to also watch my other videos. I have more than 10 videos on my channel. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please tell me in the comment section. Be respectful though. Would you call your Nigerian boss by their first name if they told you that it was okay? Or if you grew up in Nigeria but now live abroad, especially in the Northern American countries, what part of understanding your workplace actually changed when you came in here? I'd love to hear your experience. And until I see you in the next video, my name remains MJ, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.